you really have to be willing to sit through the initial stage, keep coming back anyway, staying committed, keep coming back anyway, again and again and again. That's the challenge of the practice in the beginning. But it's important to understand that that's not meditation. That's not where you'll end up if you don't give up. That's not how it'll end up if you stay with the practice over time. You have to prove yourself. It really is a matter of that. You really have to prove that you mean it, that you, and see, and this is where the teachings come in, because the teachings are what helps to motivate you to stick it out, because the teachings are talking to you about where you're going to end up if you don't give up. And so I say that to you because I want to encourage you. And that's another reason why you have to have a teacher if you're going to take meditation seriously. You got to have somebody to coach you, have to somebody to keep you in the practice, somebody to keep encouraging you, somebody to keep inspiring you and keeping you in the understanding that this is going to work out if you just don't give up. Don't give up on yourself, don't give up on life, don't give up on the truth. That if you stay with this, you discover that the awareness knows. The awareness knows. You discover that the awareness, not only does the awareness know, but the awareness has wisdom. We think that thinking is knowing, right? Most people think that if I think about something, it's because I know it. I'm thinking about it, I know it. The more I think about it, the more I know about it, right? That's a mistake. Because all the while you're thinking is knowing, the awareness that you are is behind the scenes doing the actual knowing. It was never the thinking that was doing the knowing. It was the awareness that's doing the knowing. The awareness knows what's going on. If you look around this room right now, do you have to learn about everything you see? Do you have to think about everything that appears before your awareness and say, okay, that's that, this is the floors here, you know? If you had to do that everywhere you went, you could never function. You're dysfunctional. When you walk in this room, your awareness immediately recognizes everything. And you don't know that because you think thinking is what's knowing what's going on, and it's not what's knowing what's going on. It's a very faulted way of understanding reality, because it's not about, it doesn't know what's going on. The thought process isn't aware. It's not awake. It's not alive. Right? It's a mechanical process in which it's taking information from your memory. It's using the database of your memory, right, to consistently compare what's coming in to that database and then having thoughts about it. So the recognition of what's coming in has already occurred. You already know what it is, but you don't trust that. You don't know that that's knowing. That doesn't mean anything, because you're so habitually hypnotized and so habitually conditioned to depend on thinking. So instead of allowing yourself to see what's actually happening directly, we don't know that, so we know the interpretation of what's happening, and we don't know the difference between that and what's happening. That's called confusion. So this is the what's important here. What's important here is coming to the understanding that meditation is a way for you to wake up and be in your own life. And you don't know what that means until you practice meditation long enough. When it happens, they call, when that awakening occurs, when you start to notice that you're here, and this being here is a different experience than thinking about the world. When you start to notice that, that's when you'll discover your true nature, because when you have enough of an opportunity to spend as this awareness, it becomes evident that that's what you are. It just becomes evident that that's what you are. It's a natural evolution. The seed sprouts because of the fact that you've been watering the seed, which is the meditation practice, right? You've been watering the seed. over time, the seed will eventually sprout, and when it sprouts, it will open up to the truth of the reality of what you are. And that's the awakening. That's what the Buddha experienced when he said, when I breathe in, I'm aware of breathing in. When I breathe out, I'm aware of breathing out. That sounds like, so what, right? I mean, why is that spoken about to be the big deal, the enlightenment, right? Well, it's spoken about to be the enlightenment because what he was saying is, I am now the awareness that's actually here, aware of everything. He says, I'm aware of the breath, right? But not only am I aware of the breath, but I am aware of everything. So now I am present to life. I can see life as life is. I stop believing things about life that aren't true. I stop thinking about life, and life now becomes an immediate experience that I'm having all the time. And that's a completely different reality. It's a completely different reality. So one of the things that occur, and one of the things that happens as you practice meditation, you start to get downloads. You start to get downloads. When you're in this open, receptive place, things start to download into your awareness from the wisdom teachings, from the history of all this. You get downloads. So one of these downloads that occurred for me was that I was looking at this business of practicing meditation, and I noticed that a lot of teachers ask students, what do you want? I noticed that a lot of times that's the question that gets posed to audiences when people are teaching this. What do you want? Look and see what you want. And the reality of it is that the thing that I noticed is that it's always the same 5 or 6 things. No matter who asked it or who they ask it to, it's always the same 5 or 6 things that people come up with in terms of answering that question. What do you want? What do you really want? It's always the same stuff. I want peace. I want to feel at home in my life. Right? I want to be happy. I want satisfaction, right? I want satisfaction. I want happiness. I want peace. I want a sense of well-being. So these are the things that people want. So the thing that downloaded for me the other day when I was contemplating that was, that's interesting. How do you know that? How do you know? If I say, what do you want? And you tell me you want happiness, peace, satisfaction, right? How do you know that? Where are you getting those answers? I mean, when you look at it, that's an interesting question.
Because you're aware that you don't have it.
That's right, you are. You're aware that it's missing, right? You're aware that it's missing. Now watch. Now watch, this is very interesting, right? You're aware that it's missing, and yet you know what's missing. So then the question becomes, well, how do you know what's missing? You're aware that it's missing. Well, how do you know that it's missing, right? So see if I can get this across. The reason that you know that it's missing is because it isn't missing. Now, what do I mean by that, right? I mean that the you that's experiencing that happiness, well-being, peace, satisfaction, the you that's experiencing that is happening all the time. That's happening all the time. You're being that all the time. Now, watch what happens. You had to separate yourself from that knowledge, right? You had to separate yourself from that awareness to be in the world as a person and a personality. And when you did that, you had to forget you knew those things and you had those things, right? In order to be the separate self, right? To be a separate self from that, right? And when you're the separate self, you have to identify with the physical body, you have to identify with the thought process and think you're the thinker. You have to be in time and space, you have to be in the world, right? But in order for all that to happen, you have to forget who you are temporarily. When the body dies, you will come back into that natural state again, right? Because that natural state has been here all along, okay? So it's only temporary, it's only temporary. Oh, but that temporary experience is called a human life, and that's very important to us, isn't it? We don't want to waste our life. We want to have this life be fulfilled, which means we want the happiness, the peace of mind, all the rest of it, right? But the reality of it is, the reason you know it's missing is because the you that has it is here right now. The you that has that is here right now, but you've been separated from that, and in the separated form you're in, it's not there. But it is here, you see? So when you practice meditation, what are you doing? You're moving your attention from here to here. You're moving your attention from where it's missing to where it's not missing. Now, when you first begin to practice meditation, you know, you're only here for a few seconds, right? So it's not long enough to get the full experience, right? So you bounce back, right? That's why we say in the beginning you just have to put up with the technique for a while, right? You have to keep going back and forth, right? Until you do this long enough, what starts to happen is this experience of the awareness over here, that's aware of the body breathing, starts to become gradually a little longer and a little longer and a little longer and a little longer, until at some point what's missing shows up. Of course, it was never gone, but your attention was taken by what you thought was true. Your attention was taken by who you thought you were, and you were given that your attention. You were trying to be the person in the personality experiencing what's missing, but it's not missing. That's why you look for it in the world, because it never occurs, because you don't know who you are, right? So it never occurs to you that it's not missing. So then there's the pursuit of happiness. Then we're trying to be peaceful. We're trying to get the happiness. We're trying to be satisfied. And what do we keep experiencing? Dissatisfaction. Gratification that's the best we can do as far as happiness is concerned, because we really don't know real happiness. So we figure, well, you know, if I'm gratified and if I'm experiencing pleasure and if I'm comfortable, well, maybe that's what happiness is. Maybe that's how we have to define happiness, so I can experience happiness, right? Well, that only adds to the confusion, because that's not what happiness is. So now you're in the pursuit of pleasure, and you're in the pursuit of gratification, and your way of being is pursuing gratification, you know, pursuing comfort, and avoiding discomfort and avoiding pain. And so that's the whole show. So within that reality now, we'll define happiness as gratification and pleasure. And now you're chasing the dollar, right? Now you're chasing whatever is out there in the world that looks like it's going to provide you with what you're seeking. You know, that peace of mind, that security, that well-being, that happiness, that satisfaction. And that's a setup, because now all the people in the world know that you're a consumer. Now you're somebody that we can sell something to, because you're missing something that's very valuable that you want a lot. So we'll create products and we'll say that this product's going to get you that. So Coca-Cola makes you more alive, right? Look at the specific things that are being said in commercials. If you actually listen to specifically what they're saying, right? They're offering you what's missing if you buy the product. You know, whether it's a new car, you know, new car that's going to be a big fulfillment to get a new car, right? That'll really make you happy, right? So you buy the car, right? And you think gratification is happiness. So you're happy with the car. I'm gratified, I'm happy. Oh, I finally have gotten happy, right? And then it isn't long before you start to realize this isn't it. This came and it went. I still have the new car, but I'm not experiencing that gratification, that pleasure of having the new car anymore. And I identify with the car like I identify with my body, so part of the gratification was it made me feel better about myself, because myself was now extended to the automobile. Right? So this is all the craziness that goes on for people, you know. And of course, as time passes and you start realizing you're not succeeding, you know, then you have to either try and get more money to buy more things, or find a new game to play, you know, find something else to do, or something else to buy that might solve the problem, but nothing does work. And the reason that that's the case is because happiness is not gratification. Happiness is the experience of being at home with life the way life is. So you stop relating to life trying to change it, trying to get it to be a different way, because you're happy with life the way it is, right? You understand that it works the way it is. You understand that if it wasn't for the rain, if it wasn't for all the weather being what it is, life wouldn't work. Isn't that true? Yeah, you can't have all hot, you can't have all cold, but you need hot and cold. You can't have wet and dry, wet or just dry or just wet. You need wet and dry, right? But we're so crazy we complain about it when it's in one of those forms and we want the other form. When it's raining, we don't want it to be raining. But if you're a farmer, we want it to be raining. You see, it's like, that's called crazy. That's called neurosis. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that what's missing isn't missing. It's not missing. It's here all the time. You're not aware of it. You're not experiencing it because your attention is preoccupied, right? It's preoccupied with a thought process, right, that is never going to deliver the goods. It can't deliver the goods. It's preoccupied with being a personality which can never deliver the goods. The personality can never deliver the goods. Why? Well, because the personality is not awake. The personality is not aware. That's why, when I was talking about that book that just came out to teach about meditation, okay? The book's teaching the person how to meditate, right? Which is really a shame, a tragedy in a sense, right? Because the function of meditation, it has the ability to produce what human beings want more than anything else can be produced by doing this practice and studying these teachings, right? But what we're going to do is we're going to be offering it to the person. We're going to offer it to the person, because if we don't offer it to the person, if we don't talk to the person about it in a way the person will be interested in it, then we're not going to sell any books. So we can't really be honest about what it is. We have to dumb it down enough for the personality to be interested in it. Of course, what they're interested in and what they will be practicing won't make any difference. Stress reduction, okay, stress reduction. But compare the stress reduction to the possibility of being fully awake, alive, experiencing love, being at home in your body, celebrating life, enjoying your relationships, losing your fear of death. You want stress reduction or that? It's not. It is the case that if you have a lot of money and you have a certain degree of comfort, right, you may think you made it as a personality, even though you're miserable, but you got to really keep that under wraps. That's a horrible situation, to be a billionaire and be miserable. That's a pretty horrible situation to be in, and yet that's got to be the truth. That has to be the truth, unless you're, and I don't know of any. Maybe there probably are people who are billionaires that are awake. I don't know. It's possible, right? But that's why they say the meek shall inherit the earth, because the more money you have, the easier it is to think you got what there is to get, when in fact you didn't. And of course, given that you're miserable, that's a very confusing thing for a billionaire, don't you think? I'm miserable. Why am I miserable? I can have anything. I can go anywhere. I can do anything. Why am I miserable? So it can become really a confusing and difficult situation, and that's why you see people who have seemingly have everything. Why would somebody who's traveled all over the world, who will never need for money, kill themselves? People who think that they're always going to be happy, who are identified as a personality, right? Right? They end up in trouble, right? But an awake person is always going to be happy, because the happiness they're experiencing is the real deal. It's not dependent on circumstances. It's a natural experience that's happening all the time. So I could be happy and be experiencing emotions, for example, that other people would say are unhappiness, right? And so if I was upset and emotional and grieving because somebody died, right? And if somebody asked me if I was happy at the same time and I said yes, they would say, how could you be happy? See, that doesn't compute for most people, right? Because they don't understand what an awake state is like. An awake state is a completion. It's a completion. Your life is complete. It's over. You're not trying to go anywhere or do anything anymore. You're here now. And the here now is consistent, is permanent, is stable. So you can begin to be here enjoying what is coming and going all the time. Without attachment to it, without identifying with it, right? And so, what was a hell realm, this is interesting, what was a hell realm becomes a party in the snap of a finger. What was a hell realm becomes a party in the snap of a finger. Right? Yeah, because the reality of it, this is what the kingdom of heaven on earth. What does that mean? If you wake up, you experience the kingdom of heaven on earth, right? What's that mean? What's the kingdom of heaven? The kingdom of heaven is where you know who you are, right? And you're in heaven because everything is perfect. And you're enjoying everything. There's no problem anymore, This is like dying and going to heaven, right? This is, no suffering. Everything is perfect. You're enjoying yourself. You're not attached to anything. Losing the physical body is not a threat anymore. So that's heavenly, right? That's the kingdom of heaven on earth. You're still in the same world as everybody else, but not experiencing it the same way as everybody else. It's the same world, but the same world that would, for many people, for most people, as it stands today, would be a hell realm, would be something that people are trying to get through, get it over with, When you wake up, you realize that, that was a bad dream. And now you're here to experience the possibility of enjoying your life with everything being the way it is. Nothing has to change anymore. Nothing has to be different than it is anymore. So that's what happens when the awakening occurs. But the awakening won't occur unless you understand the teaching sufficiently enough to know you've got to practice your way out of the dream. You got to dream your way free from the dream, right? The dream is you thinking your personality, right? So you got to dream, you got to be in that dream, dreaming your way out of it through the practices and through the teachings. And you've got to be committed, and you have to understand what you're up against. You're up against a stacked deck. You're up against, you're living in a world where almost everybody in the world is delusional. Everybody in the world is living in a dream state, everybody in the world, and they think that delusion and that dream state is reality.